Commencing transmission. Engaging scramblers. Proxy chain initialized. And now, live from his hidden base at the Earth's core, the future ruler of Earth, Doomcock.
Greetings, Legionnaires, villains, rogues, nemeses, and YouTube subscribers. I am Dicta Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and today I am broadcasting from my hidden base at the center of the Earth to examine the patient zero of the social justice warrior cinematic plague, 2016's remake of Ghostbusters. With me, as always, is my arch-nemesis and best friend, Harvey Cthulhu.
I'm not speaking to you.
Huh? Why?
If you don't know, I'm certainly not going to tell you.
What are you, my girlfriend all of a sudden?
I thought it would be funny, in keeping with the theme of social justice warrior gender swapping, if I portrayed myself as recast by a woman in a Doomcock reboot.
But you know nothing about women. You're an alien eldritch god.
Yeah, so my version of femininity will be based around the worst stereotypes I picked up from TV and film. Should be fun.
Oh, fuck. I should just end this right now.
Fine. Then you can get busy taking out the trash and doing some laundry. I'm not your maid.
I think this is merely a ploy to get my head to explode and escape from your containment field, but I'm not going to bite. I have a serious topic to discuss here, and I refuse to be distracted.
Sure. Ignore me. Why should today be any different? We never talk anymore.
Aha! But you just said you weren't speaking to me. So which is it, eh? Do we never talk anymore, or are you not speaking to me?
You can't beat me with logic. I'm recast, remember? Logic only makes me madder. I'm a girl.
One of these days, Harvey, one of these days, pow! Right to the moon!
I'm calling Gloria Allred. Pound me too. Pound me too.
You mean hashtag me too. Pound me too is not a feminist. Oh, never mind, Jesus. Anyway, back on topic. Ghostbusters 2016 was ground zero of the social justice warrior explosion that has engulfed film after film in a conflagration of diversity stunt casting, inclusion riders, and virtue signaling that has left nothing but rubble and destruction in its wake. Ghostbusters premiered in 2016, infamously recasting the four male leads in the classic Ghostbusters with three brutally unfunny women and one perpetually grinning cartoon jackal. Hilarity failed to ensue, but what did follow that release was a concentrated effort by studios to shame critics of this train wreck into silence by branding them as misogynists if they dared point out that this particular empress had no clothes. And in this case, we really wanted them to put some on.
That was offensive and sexist. Why can't you judge these women for their comedy and not their bodies, eh?
Because their comedy is worse. Believe me, judging them for their comedy is doing them no favors at all. Now, given that Doomcock hadn't even considered creating a YouTube channel in 2016, I never got the chance to weigh in on this condescending condensation of comedic crapola until now. Doomcock has decided to address this atrocity for two reasons. Being the first instance of a studio using social justice warrior stunt casting to insulate an inferior film from criticism by branding its critics sexists, Ghostbusters remains relevant today as more and more projects adopt this cynical marketing tactic. That's reason one. Reason two is, I hate this shit and want to kick the crap out of it just for fun. And so, let the fun begin. Ghostbusters, answer the call as I stated before. Recast all the classic male roles from the original classic Ghostbusters with women seemingly screened by an evil computer program designed to filter out all traces of comedy. Kristen Wiig stars, or rather Mars, as wannabe academic / one-time paranormal investigator / professional lump-on-a-log impersonator, Erin Gilbert. She has the comedic presence of a sack of particularly dim potatoes, playing her wallflower role of a frustrated academic with all the elan of Mighty Spock on NyQuil. Perhaps only the evolved redwoods of the future will appreciate her comedic timing, given that it is undetectable in anything resembling a human attention span. Maybe evolved Galapagos tortoises will detect some humor in the monotonous, drawn-out stretches of improv that make this film drag out like a 2-hour wait in a dentist's office. No better, and perhaps even worse, are her co-stars / unindicted co-conspirators Melissa McCarthy and Kate McKinnon. McCarthy is tragically miscast as Bill Murray's counterpart, Abby Yates, whose pathetically desperate flop-sweat-coated attempts to wring humor out of broken wontons, malfunctioning equipment, and witless non-sequiturs makes her vastly more annoying than the mouse-like Kristen Wiig, who at least has the good grace to fade into the background at every opportunity. Watching Wiig's Erin Gilbert is like watching a fart. It may be nothing to look at, but you can't escape the sense that something distasteful is happening. McCarthy, on the other hand, is the thespian equivalent of a butt biscuit served with cut cheese, an offensive bark of ass wind that leaves no nose unturned in its desperation for attention. Her loud, braying approach to comedy failure would easily be the most offensive thing in this movie, were it not for Kate McKinnon's impression of an ADHD cartoon jackal mugging and flailing around in the background of every shot like Jim Carrey's shot full of meth with a full bladder and a cattle prod up his wazoo. All presence of subtlety, timing, and membership in the human race is cast aside as McKinnon does her damnedest to audition for some upcoming remake of Gremlins, playing Stripe as a Jim Carrey imitator on meth with a cattle prod up his wazoo.
I find this kind of language offensive, and with an entitled male bias towards toilet humor.
At least there's humor to find here of a sort. There is none in Ghostbusters Answer the Call, presumably nature's call, as this film is the cinematic equivalent of a massive unflushed dump that you get charged admission to see. Seriously, all kidding aside, the worst thing I can say about this film is I did not laugh once. Not once. For a horror comedy, it fails on 3 fronts. It's not scary, it's not funny, and the third front I'll get to in a few minutes. Rounding out the cast is the stereotypical one-half-dimensional Leslie Jones as a more muscular Ernie Hudson in drag.
Half-dimensional? And what is that one half?
That half a dimension is tragic, because if not for that little bit of dimension, we wouldn't be able to perceive her at all, which really would make me happy. Critics hammered Leslie Jones for being loud, cliched, and obnoxious, but honestly, at least her jackass-like braying served as a kind of alarm clock to jolt you awake when the rest of the cast would periodically lull you into a comatose stupor. I hated her no more than the rest of the cast, possibly even less than Kate McKinnon, with her perpetually frozen shit-eating grin, a grin that seemed to say, "Oh, look how funny I am. I'm so amusing I can barely keep from laughing at my own genius." Which is Ghostbusters in a nutshell. Director/writer/rodeo-ass clown Paul Feig reportedly would just roll the camera during extended improv takes, laughing at every stray brain fart this struggling cast came up with as if it issued forth from the reincarnation of the great Bill Hicks himself. Unable to distinguish a joke if it bitch-slapped him in the face with an ice-cold flounder, Feig put together a 4-hour cut chock full of this joyless banality and called it genius, cheering these exercises in corporate retreat team building as if they were comedic gems of high-pants crapitude. But perhaps Feig wasn't really trying. Perhaps he couldn't be bothered with crafting a coherent script, or getting decent performances out of his miscast cast, because Feig had a plan to bulletproof his epic failure from receiving its bitter due. Why try to make a good movie when you can simply cash your paycheck and ensure good reviews and boffo box office by branding anyone who hated this mess as a misogynist?
You're clearly a misogynist, Doomcock. You even have a phallic name. Dictor Van Doomcock? Really?
Yes, it was my hope that the mere sight of my name would cause social justice warriors to explode like vampires hit with holy water or Martians listening to Slim Whitman. Still, I assure you, Harvey.
It's Harriet, for the duration of this bit, you chauvinist pig.
Harriet, Christ.
No, just Harriet. No last name.
I assure you, Harriet, misogyny had nothing to do with my reaction to this non-comedic train wreck. Although you'll find a shitload of misanthropy here, this is a film that hates white males and takes every opportunity to vilify, mock, and marginalize them. I wonder, when will social justice warriors learn that discrimination of any kind, positive or negative, only perpetuates the divisions they purport to despise? When you affirm your group, when you say girl power, or black power, or German power, or whatever power, you are by default setting your particular demographic apart from the larger body of humanity. You are, by default, discriminating, setting up an in-group and an out-group. And so, when Ghostbusters 2016 consistently depicts white males as cowardly, greedy, cruel, and stupid, it undermines any credibility it might have had as a genuine vehicle for progressivism and reveals itself to be as bigoted and ugly as the objects of its contempt. Almost all the men featured in Ghostbusters 2016 are white males. Let's see how each of them is treated and what that says about the feminist agenda in this movie. In the first scene, we're introduced to a tour guide in a famous haunted house. He's a con man with a remote-controlled apparatus to make a candlestick jump off a table on cue. And when confronted with a ghost, he literally shits himself. This point is belabored to an obnoxious extent by his boss, Ed Begley Jr., who reveals himself to be, surprise, surprise, an asshole by repeating the fact over and over and over again to these women for, I guess, comedic effect, which it fails at. You've got Aaron Gilbert's boss, Tywin Lannister, who comes off as a clueless skeptic, given that ghosts are real and he can't see it because he's part of the narrow-minded patriarchy standing in the way of Aaron Gilbert's superior knowledge. And, of course, later on he gets shot on the toilet with a crossbow. Later on, we meet another boss who childishly does the old inflatable middle finger gag and milks it for, I think, 2 years of real time. But the prize winner for misanthropic hatred and mockery is the lead male, Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth, who plays, and I use the term with clinical precision and not as a callous slur, a borderline retarded man who can't manage the simplest of secretarial tasks, who is hired simply because Aaron Gilbert lusts after him. Now think about that for a second. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, there's no way I can fully describe just how utterly clueless this character is. He can't manage even the simplest of tasks. He wears glasses without any glass in them. He can't properly work a phone. He can't remember a proper message to give. But they hire him because they think he's sexy, and Aaron wants to bang him. Now, can you imagine how social justice warriors would react if we made a movie these days where 3 men hire a mentally impaired woman because they want to screw her? Can you imagine a film glorifying taking advantage of a borderline retarded woman just because she's beautiful? Well, I can't imagine that either. But this is precisely what passes as a desperate attempt at comedy in Ghostbusters 2016. Aaron Gilbert insists on hiring him because he gets her weak between the knees. This is, I guess, perfectly fine, because in this scenario, women are the abusers, and a poor, developmentally challenged man is the victim. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean the comedy relief, because taking advantage of a man is funny, and taking advantage of a woman is a crime. So much for the lofty standards of social justice warriors.
It was a parody of all the movies of the past that made fun of sex-bot secretaries who can't type or file. You reactionary, paternalistic, phallic swine?
I've seen a shit ton of those movies, Harriet, and not one of them treated the female secretary as badly as this. A lot of those secretaries in those old movies were depicted as cunning predators in their own rights, exploiting their attractiveness to secure jobs where they didn't have to do anything. But even at its worst, I can't recall an old movie with a female secretary as developmentally impaired as Kevin. Later in the movie, spoiler for any of you out there who give a shit, Kevin gets possessed by the leading bad guy, a pasty-faced little ball of lard with no interesting or remarkable characteristics at all, another prime specimen of white manhood. As a result, Kevin starts insulting the Ghostbusters with misogynist slurs right and left. Women can't drive, women are late, and so on and so forth. The message being, Feig is anticipating the critical backlash this horrible piece of shit will provoke, and is proactively setting up any critics of the movie as villains, just like Kevin Thor. It's made quite explicit in this section, with possessed Kevin embodying the white patriarchy so hated by these feminist clowns, attempting to subconsciously identify any resistance to this hideous vision of Ghostbusters with misogyny and villainy. As if one needed to be a villain to hate this garbage. Really, all anyone needs to possess, to despise this movie, is an intact sense of humor and a modicum of taste, because it's a joyless, worthless slog through misery, a Bataan death march of suck, a trail of cinematic tears that seems to prove Einstein's theory of relativity, for time passes very slowly for those watching this shit, compared to those out in the world, among life and interesting things not made by Paul Feig. He was planning ahead, wasn't he? Planting the seeds to accuse people who called this movie garbage of being sexist bigots. Ghostbusters 16 was to be the model of social justice warrior propriety. But was it really? In a jaw-droppingly awful scene of bird-dropping revulsion, Erin Gilbert bows down before the patriarchy, negating any social justice warrior progress her character might have made thus far. In a painful and saddening cameo, original Ghostbuster Bill Murray, wearing an expression suggesting he was undergoing a colonoscopy during filming, visits the women and expresses skepticism about their work. Now Erin Gilbert, who seemingly only got into this to validate her work and get back into academia, although it also seems like they're trying to make money, so who really knows, trashes any pretense she might have had towards being a feminist icon, and releases the only ghost they've managed to capture during the whole movie in the office in front of him in order to impress him. So think about that for a moment, kids. This scientist, who has finally captured a ghost for study, for evidence that she's not crazy, evidence that might win her awards and get her academic career back on track, releases the ghost into the office without any safety constraints or cameras or plan, just to impress Bill Murray. So much for women not needing the approval of men. And a white man to boot. The horror! Never mind that they belittle Bill Murray by putting him in a ridiculous woman's hat that belonged to his mother, because every white male in this movie must be degraded or vilified. Despite that, Erin Gilbert bows down to him and throws away her hard-earned prize of a captive ghost just to secure his approval. Well, we'll never know if she got it or not, because the ghost grabs Bill Murray and flies through the window with him, dropping him to his death. And then the arch-bitch Leslie Jones, in one of the most infuriating moments in any movie I've ever seen, leans out the window in the extended cut, looks down at Bill Murray's dead body, and says, "Guess he wasn't really Ghostbuster material." Bill Murray, the original Ghostbuster, in one of the greatest performances of his life, gets dissed by this squirt of liquid shit calling itself a movie, insulted and belittled by a failed comedian not fit to hold his soiled whoopee cushion in a bizarro, distorted, unfunhouse perversion of a classic movie, has the unmitigated gall to insult her incomparably superior predecessor. There are not enough fuck yous in the world for you, Paul Feig, for writing such a pretentious and smug line, given how spectacularly untalented you are in your prissy little suit and your wimpy cuckold glasses. And fuck you, Leslie Jones, you hulking piece of nothing. How about you hold back from delivering a line like that until you get your first laugh? Is that asking too much? That you manage to be funny in this movie just once before you take a shot at a comedy legend? You're not Ghostbusters, ladies. You're barely even comedians. And the only laugh you can lay claim to is believing yourselves to be funny. Now that's a fucking joke.
Why? Because women aren't funny?
These women sure as shit aren't. And this script, if there even was a script, is riddled with idiotic plot holes. For example, Kate McKinnon's character invents a beam that grabs things and pulls them into a wood chipper. So are these women looking to make money like in the old Ghostbusters, or are they scientists looking to expand the boundaries of knowledge? Either way, this device is a huge plot hole because it is essentially a tractor beam. So these idiots have invented a tractor beam, the patent for which would make them all filthy rich and establish the inventor as a famous scientist. So why are they just using this miraculous device as a ghost chipper? Do they ever stop to think about that? No! Then why do they waste time with those proton packs, slamming ghost after ghost impotently to the ground in the grand finale, instead of just breaking out the ghost chippers and chopping them up one by one into goo? How come Patty just quits her job with the transit authority? We never see how the Ghostbusters get funding. We never see them make a profit off of their ghostbusting. They don't actually name themselves. They get their name and their logo from other sources. So where the hell is she getting an income from? If Erin hates the book so much, why does she have one on her shelf already when she takes the bad guy's copy? There are probably a lot more plot holes, but you get the point. This is not a well-thought-out project. For a supposedly feminist project, it is lousy with queef jokes, fart jokes, slime jokes, various jokes about cracks and cleavage. The attempts at humor are juvenile at best, unforgivably flat and irrelevant at worst. None of the jokes work. None of the action pieces work. The bizarre dance moves Kevin makes the possessed crowd perform at the end, not scary, not interesting, just cringeworthy. And what of the characters? The original characters were funny, memorable, and likable. We could buy that they started out as mismatched individuals that grew into a team. We believed them when they were afraid, and so we believed them when they showed courage. In the end, when they decide to cross the streams, we bought their sacrifice, and we cared what happened to them. So, what about these women then? Can we say the same about them? No, they are never believable in the slightest. They have no moments of warmth between them, and they are not likable. Abby sabotages Erin's career by stealing and posting her research, humiliating her and getting her fired. Holtzman is too bizarre to be considered a viable human being, and so nothing she does carries any dramatic or comedic weight. Patty is just another loudmouth with cliched reactions and zero nuance. And even Erin, the supposedly shy and thoughtful academic, only hires the mentally impaired Kevin not out of charity, since the man is clearly unemployable, but because she wants to jump his bones. We can't get invested in what happens to them, because there is no sincerity to these characters. We never buy that they're actually scared. They never stop desperately trying to crack jokes long enough to say anything sincere. This movie isn't funny, scary, smart, or fun. Hence, in the words of the immortal bard, Ghostbusters 2016 is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So what did Sony accomplish with this movie? For one thing, it destroyed the Ghostbuster franchise and pissed off a lot of fans, and it gave producers throughout the business an awful idea. And so we come to the ground zero aspect of this train wreck, the way that it infected the rest of Hollywood. I don't know why this is the case. After all, the gambit to shame audiences into silence over how awful this film is clearly failed. And yet time and time again, productions have adopted this social justice warrior strategy to pander to millennial audiences and stifle critics who rightly hate these movies for being badly written franchise destroyers. Why did Leslie Jones have to say that unspeakably insulting line to Bill Murray's dead body? For the same reason that Disney completely destroyed the original beloved Star Wars characters and ruined the original trilogy, and CBS systematically raped and debased the Star Trek franchise until nothing was left save the irredeemably vile and supremely insulting abomination that is Star Trek Discovery. In order to elevate their substandard social justice warrior characters, they had to belittle, debase, and discard everything superior that came before. Why do they do this? As I've said many times previously, the reason is simple. Corporations like Disney, Sony, and CBS have wrung all the dollars they can out of the beloved original characters who have aged beyond the point of easy profitability. And so, rather than nurture these characters into a graceful retirement, allowing them to mentor well-written new characters respectfully into a position to lead their respective franchise in new and original directions, they prefer to herd the old horses into the slaughterhouse and render them into glue, which they use to prop up their paper-thin new characters like shabby movie posters on a decaying wall. You see, the former approach, creating compelling characters and crafting storylines wherein a venerable Jedi Master Luke, at the height of his powers, guides these characters to a new and noble destiny as his direct disciples, it takes too much talent, too much skill. The corporations aren't comfortable relying on creativity and skill because, see, you can't tally those things in a spreadsheet. You can't assign numbers to those qualities and make them add up for investors. No. It's always easier to destroy than to create. And so rather than gamble on building up their new characters like Rey and Mikey Spock with great scripts, it's easier just to shit all over the old characters, tear them down, make Luke a cowardly deserter, Han a deadbeat dad, Leia a failed leader, Chewie a pet for a Mary Sue, Spock a second banana to a phony stepsister, and Bill Murray the snuffed-out butt of a joke, and eliminate them so that Rey and Kylo and Mikey, Spock, and Leslie Jones won't pale in direct comparison. See, rather than elevate your new characters with care and talent, far easier to tear down the old, much better characters so the new ones won't seem quite so shitty standing next to them, cowering in their shadows. Our shared cultural heritage, our common modern mythologies, are inconvenient to their corporate profits, and so our memories must be sacrificed on the altar of their quarterly returns. They want to override our treasured old dreams with new improved prefabricated dreams that they will be all too happy to sell us. But we can stop them, my comrades. All we need to do is refuse to let their new visions into our heads. Don't allow them to tarnish the original Star Wars trilogy. Don't let them tell you that their happy ending in Return of the Jedi was a lie. Don't let them tarnish Luke in your mind by branding him a manatee-sucking coward. Don't let them lie to us about a stepsister that Spock never had and Sarek loved more than his own son. And don't let them sneer at Bill Murray's dead body on the ground and tell us all he wasn't really Ghostbusters material. Don't go see these movies anymore. Don't watch their obscene reboots and remakes and desecrations. Stop pledging loyalty to brand names and start rejecting anything that fails to treat your heroes and your intelligence with respect. Stop allowing corporations to rewrite your memories. Otherwise, the past is prologue, and what we'll get is more of the same. Nowadays, more and more movies are adopting the social justice warrior agenda. Why? Because it plays into supposed millennial values. Studios think they're riding the coming wave of social justice warrior sensitivity and stifling political correctness. But are they? Because can you call a movie that slanders one demographic to bolster another truly progressive? Ghostbusters attempts to elevate women at the expense of males who are treated uniformly as villains and buffoons, but fails even at that when Aaron literally gives up the ghost to the white male patriarchy? Is Black Panther truly progressive when it elevates one group over another? Indeed, doesn't it seem to say that having a monochrome insulated civilization is perfectly fine, not understanding that any discrimination only perpetuates segregation? Look at Doctor Who and Star Trek Discovery, indulging in stunt casting solely for the purpose of virtue signaling. How can a project claim to be enlightened and progressive when it discriminates by pandering to one group or another instead of simply casting the best actors regardless of race or sex? Star Trek Discovery is particularly bad in this regard, as they didn't start out with characters, they started out with slots to be filled, designed to critic-proof their little monstrosity, and slots are all they ever got, because Star Trek Discovery has no characters to speak of. Just ugly little slots filled with boring little caricatures, lifelessly scripted, insulting to all previous fans of the franchise. This is the future, if we fail to resist. These corporations will not stop until they've destroyed your treasured memories to make way for their new, more profitable marketing SKUs. This is the future, if we fail to resist. So, what did you think of that, Harriet?
I think you're a bad boy. But I also think that maybe I could change you.
So, does that mean you'll give me some?
Not on your life. I don't put out without a written agreement outlining clear consensual steps with an escape clause if I change my mind immediately afterwards, so I can sue you, you phallocentric pig.
Bravo, Harvey. A method actor to the last. And now, I'd like to take a moment to inform you of a new development. My friends, you should know that I am not being monetized by YouTube in any way. It will be a cold day in hell before they fund anyone like me, but that's where you can help me win my struggle for world domination. People, if everyone who enjoys my videos, if even half of you, would donate $1 a month to my Patreon site, Doomcock would be able to make videos full-time. That would mean more frequent releases, better production values, more sidekicks, and bigger adventures, all for only $1 a month. On my Patreon page at patreon.com/Doomcock, I've instituted a new level of membership, the Vagabond. For $1 a month, you can join Doomcock's lair, and in exchange for that dollar, you get access to a monthly roundtable discussion about topics of the day recorded by Doomcock and other Patreon members. This month, the roundtable featured Doomcock along with Michael Aaron's 1701 and Random Game User 42 dissecting Ghostbusters 2016, and I've made that discussion available for free at patreon.com/Doomcock. Furthermore, members at all levels on my Patreon page get to communicate with me directly, engage me in messages I always respond to, and know that they're making a stand for quality pop culture criticism against the forces of mediocrity in Hollywood. So if you enjoy these videos, please consider parting with $1 a month, $12 a year to help Doomcock conquer the world. Go to patreon.com/Doomcock and consider joining my struggle.
And while you're there, consider letting me loose from this containment field, would you? I'm really not a bad guy. I was just kidding about destroying the world all those times, honest.
Oh, shut up, Harriet.
Harvey, I'm off the clock now. Is this a wrap?